Good morning.
It's 9:05. In order, can I get a quorum check, please?
District 1 Supervisor Alejo.
Linda Gonzalez, alternate.
District 2 Supervisor Church.
Here.
District 3 Supervisor Lopez.
Priscilla Barba, alternate.
District 4 Supervisor Askew.
Yuri Anderson, alternate.
District 5 Supervisor Adams. Here. City of Carmel by the Sea. City of Del Rio.
Here.
City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Greenfield.
Here.
City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Present.
City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas. City of Sand City. City of Seaside. City of Soledad.
Here.
Ambag.
Here.
Caltrans District 5.
Here.
Monterey Bay Air Resource District. Monterey Regional Airport District. Monterey Salinas Transit.
Here.
City of Watsonville. CSUMB. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to public comments. Is there any member of the public who to speak on any item not on the agenda? Again, I'll ask, is there any member of the public to speak on any item not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Does any member of the board have to pull any items from the consent agenda? Yes, Scott?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 3.4.1.
Any other board members?
One minor edit to 3.1.1. The minutes.
1.1. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Again, I'll ask, is there any member of the public who would like to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board for let's add the 3.11 minor edit. What was that?
The attendance just reflects that I was present when Supervisor Askew was present at the last meeting.
Okay. So we'd be looking for action for all consent agenda items with the correction as noted, except for 3.4.1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First was Chaps, second with Yuri. All in roll call, please.
District 1 Alternate Gonzalez.
Yes.
District 2 Supervisor Church.
Yes.
District 3 Alternate Barba.
Yes.
District 4 Alternate Anderson.
Yes.
District 5 Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea. City of Del Rio.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Yes.
City of Greenfield.
Yeah.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas. City of Sand City. Aye. City of Seaside. City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. So let's go to 3.4.1. Scott, would you like to
All
start?
right, thank you, Chair. So I just want to let everybody know that I support the recommendation, but I did have a few questions. First off, MNS was approved for the contract. And I know there was a committee that took a look at, I guess there were 4 bids that came in. But could you give me kind of I guess a summary of how they were chosen? I mean, were they the lowest bid? Have they done work with TAMC in the past?
I'm going to let Lori Williamson come up and answer your questions.
So yes, the consultant was selected based on the criteria that was in the RFP. So we had pre-established what our criteria for approval was.
Okay, what were the major criteria for that?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly, but it's usually your team qualifications, whether or not you've worked on similar projects, your reference checks.
Proposed approach to the
Oh,
project.
yes.
Okay, and have they worked on similar projects or worked with TAMC in the past?
Yes, they were our construction managers for the Salinas Rail project.
Okay. You know, I look at the scope of work, it's gonna take 2 years. And, you know, that's a lot of construction. 2 years in a small city. And so as I look at that scope of work and the tasks, they are absolutely critical to the success here. The one thing that jumped out at me was the outreach plan, which is key, because I'll just say that the TAMC outreach, the GHD outreach plan, didn't resonate in the city. I mean, it basically split our city in half. And so I think as we go through and endure 2 years of construction, that piece is going to be critical. And from what I understand, that Ingram Group is the outreach. And I guess they plan to have a few meetings. In the staff report, it showed that there were meetings. So one of the first questions I had was, they identified the Oldemeyer Center as the meeting place. And, you know, I think the majority of participants are going to be from Delray Oaks, and that outreach should happen in Delray Oaks.
That's more likely a proposed location. None of the locations have been decided yet. We'll do that as we go through the project.
Okay, that's just something to note that I think that would be more appropriate. And then I'm also looking at the schedule, kickoff meetings, pre-construction meetings, coordination meetings. I want to be a part of that. So my question is there a schedule? Is there information out there that lets me know what the timeline looks like and which events I can participate in?
We will have one at a later date. What was included in the contract is a preliminary schedule, and that's going to be fine-tuned based on the schedule of the contract.
Okay, so you have an idea of when that's going to come out and how I can be included in that distribution?
Yes, we're going to put together a stakeholder group, and we'll be contacting everyone for information on it.
Okay, and from what I understand, there's 5 milestone events that is part of the outreach, is part of the release to media and so on. Is that correct?
Off the top of my head.
Okay, once again, that piece is going to be critical to all of it. And, you know, it just goes to reason why I want to be a part of that and make sure that the community stays informed. And then my last question, the project manager, I noticed it's a Mr. Aaron Hilton. Is he going to be the kind of the hub for everything going forward as we go through this construction phase?
Yes.
And if it's possible, I would like some contact information so I can reach out to him. Okay, so those are all my questions.
This doesn't replace TAMC staff's heavy involvement in the project and monitoring of construction. This is just construction management firm is the one that makes sure everything gets done to the letter of the bid package. So there's lots to this, but TAMC staff will still be part of this throughout the whole construction.
Okay.
And you'll ensure there's coordination with Delray Oaks?
Yep.
All right.
Through the chair, my understanding is this first section is all within Delray Oaks. 68, I mean, you know, what is that road?
218.
218?
No, not necessarily. It's up to the contractor to decide on which components of the project to start first. So the Plumas Avenue component that's in Seaside, I'm not sure what the strategy is for construction yet, but it's to the contractors to determine.
No, that's fine. I was just concerned about, making sure we had stakeholder meetings in Delray Oaks. That, it shouldn't be an ambiguity about there are at least one in Delray Oaks.
Oh,
And so, no, I'm just saying, if you're gonna take care of it, then that's fine. I was just highlighting that shouldn't have been a concern, but I'm sure you'll take care of it. For sure.
Any other questions or comments? Any member of the public have it? Go ahead, Ed.
I'm sorry. I was just looking a little bit at the company profile, so I wanted to make sure we have the rights. MSN Engineering. And that's a New York-based firm, or is it something else? If you could give us some,
I believe MNS is based in Santa Barbara.
so you say it's MSN?
MNS.
MNS, okay, and based in Santa Barbara. So I guess the question is, while we're doing the bidding process, there is a verification that they have all the licenses, we have a history. So that's part of the due diligence before we, you know who you're opening the envelopes from. So you know that they're verified to be capable of doing the work. Okay, just wanted to make sure, because what I was finding was New York, and I wanted to make sure we're talking about a California firm, licensed engineering. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any member of the public who can speak on this item? Then I'll ask, is there any member of the public to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Trista Scott, second Mary. Roll call, please.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Yes.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Yes.
District 3, alternate Garba.
Yes.
District 4, alternate Anderson.
Yes.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea. City of Del Rey Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzalez.
Yes.
City of Greenfield. Yes. City of King City.
Aye.
City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas. City of Sand City.
Aye.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Here the motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to item 4, receive information on Measure X revenues and the annual inflation adjustment to the regional projects and programs. This will be Michael Zeller.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm Mike Zeller, TAMC's Director of Programming and Project Delivery. Happy to give you an update on Measure X revenues and good news about how the revenues have been coming in. This is just a chart kind of showing some of the historical revenues that we've received over the prior fiscal years. The red line along the bottom is our $20 million estimate when we first set up Measure X, what we expected to get annually. And you can see every year we've exceeded that initial projection, with the fiscal year 21-22 coming in at just over $38 million. And that is projected to stay at that level over the next 3 fiscal years. So the one just completed, 22-23, was again just over 38 million. This coming fiscal year, the one that we're in right now, again 38 million, and then can't see it behind the video, but 24-25 is forecasted to go up to 39 million. And these forecasts are done by HDL, our sales tax forecasting firm that we work with. So a lot of this is based on the Wayfair decision. So online sales tax that is now being collected that wasn't collected previously when we first set up our estimates. So that's helped to keep our revenues high, especially going through the shelter in place. When a lot of purchases shifted to online, we were still able to capture that sales tax and keep our revenues coming in very high. What this has allowed us to do is to hold off on doing bonding or any kind of incurring any kind of cost for debt financing. We've been able to work on our regional projects on a pay-as-you-go fashion without having to look get any debt financing. But this also then, with 60% of the revenues going to the local jurisdictions, this has just been more money going to the cities and the county for local street and road maintenance. This chart just shows how we've been leveraging the regional Measure X funds. You can see we've been able to bring in just over $120 million using just over $44 million of Measure X, and as well as some of our formula funds. The formula funds include our State Transportation Improvement Program that we receive every 2 years, local partnership program funds from the Senate Bill 1. We're only eligible to receive those funds by being a self-help county, so we need Measure X to be able to get those formula funds to begin with. And then this also includes some developer fees, both the regional fees as well as local developer fees. So what makes up this $120 million of grant funds? There's the $19 million in local partnership program funds on the Imgen Road project. There's $20 million on the Castroville project, the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. The MST Surf project has received a large amount of grant funding, $25 million in grant funds, as well as our Safe Routes to School program has been very successful in leveraging Measure X funds, over $5 million in grants towards the Safe Routes to School program, using only about $500,000 of Measure X. So it's great job there for Salinas and Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School plans and North County plan that we'll be working on. So just really exciting that we're being able to bring in all this additional revenue with just using a fraction of the Measure X and formula funds. So one of the questions that has come up through our Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee is that if revenues have been coming in higher than what had been projected, is there some way to use these additional revenues? One thing I'll point out is that to date, we've only collected about 157 million of the total 600 million that we projected for Measure X. So we don't necessarily have additional revenues until we surpass that 600 million. But the way that things are going, we do have money has obviously been coming in quite a bit higher than what we had expected. Oops, sorry, my slides got out of order. So one of the questions was about the use of excess revenues. In the policies and project descriptions, there is a provision in there that if the 5-year average of revenues exceeds the estimates in this plan, which it has, the TAMC board has the ability to look at allocating funds, those additional funds, to either cover cost increases or new features of projects that are already on the list, incorporate new technologies in the plan, and then finally to add new projects to the list. We discussed these options with the executive committee, and the consensus coming out of that discussion was to look at first trying to complete some of the projects, the regional projects that we have on the list right now, before we look at reallocating any of the existing funding for adding projects. As we talked about today, we have the 410 Canyon Ray project that will be going to construction soon. The City of Marina's Imgen Road project will also be going to construction, Castroville Boulevard. So we have some projects that are lined up, ready to go to construction. They'll be completed over the coming years. And then our intention is to, once those are completed and we can take those off the list, see if we've had any cost savings that we can then apply to other projects, and bring that discussion back to the board to talk about where we are with revenues. Do we have additional revenues? Do we want to look at including new projects in the regional list? So then if I can step back, there's another provision that's also in the policy descriptions about cost changes, and it deals with annual inflation. So looking at that, we had done an initial estimate of all the costs, project costs in the plan, but just due to unforeseen situations, like we had a discussion a few months back about the Castroville project and the cost increases there, project costs can and do increase. And that's not even just to account for inflation. But specifically, this clause deals with adding an annual inflation adjustment, which we had not previously been enacting. So as I mentioned, as the higher revenues have been coming in, the local jurisdictions have been benefiting from that directly, just from getting the the 60% percentages, and then that filters through to the local jurisdictions. But we had not been making any adjustments to the regional projects to date. We have discussed, staff has discussed this with the Citizens Oversight Committee as well as the Executive Committee to put forward the proposal that we would start indexing the regional programs and projects on an annual basis to keep up for inflation in light of the higher revenues that we've been receiving. So what is included in the staff report is the full table. Here's a truncated version that shows the fiscal year 17-18 is the baseline where we started. And then if we use the same inflation indexing percentage that we use for the local jurisdictions maintenance of effort, or we index that annually, we apply that same index to the regional program and projects. This fiscal year 23-24, you would see we'd come up to from the original 240 million to 291. And we're proposing to add this on an annual basis and then also bring this back to the board for information when we do our annual updates from the audits. So with that, that concludes my presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Let's start with you.
Two things, I didn't see the last percentage for the last 24-25.
Sorry, it's 4 point,
What?
a little bit over 4%.
Yeah, I don't know where that box has to stay right there.
Can you move it, Maria?
But the most important one is, he said, bring it back for update and information. I think it's more appropriate to bring it back for approval. You know, if you're saying it went to the exec team to push forward with recommendations, then it has to be something that the board does instead of just saying, we heard what you guys did in exec meeting. I don't understand that part.
The policy to update it annually is part of the adopted Measure X policy that was approved by the board and by the voters. But we hadn't been applying it up to this point. So that's why we were proposing that it be annual after this basis, just because it is already adopted by the board. This would be the start of making sure we apply. So we don't have to, I mean, you could.
But you know what I'm saying, so then there's no proposal, if there's nothing for us to do, there's no proposal, that's what I'm trying to understand. If you guys saying that the exec made a decision to apply the rules, the regulations, and the requirements already documented. If you're just following the requirements already documented, then I understand that part.
The exec position was to bring it to the board for this discussion. So we conceptually looked at the application of the annual increases, but it wasn't our decision. It was to bring to the board for this discussion of what we're going to do with these additional revenues. And so I wouldn't allow us to make a decision.
No, I don't mean it that way, Chair.
I know.
I just thought more of us, if we're following the rules that are in the policy that we have, I think we all understand that. And I think I heard we're not doing that. So it's good that we're going to do that. But then annually, if you're telling us the numbers are adjusted for inflation, then that's an automatic number. But if the projects are being adjusted and monies are being added, then I think there has to be something. Well, if you ever, adopt a new project. Okay, I understand that. So then my question is, no, I got it, I got it. But then my last question is, when will we hear that new projects may be adopted and added to the list? Because I heard it'd be 3 or 4 years. These things are just started. So is it 2 years from now, 3 years from now? That way we're not waiting for next year because they'll still be in the middle and we don't know the final cost, right? So is it 3 years?
I don't have an exact date, and the criteria that I would expect the threshold for us to bring a new project in would be situations like the Imgen Parkway project that's going to start construction soon. Once it's completely constructed and closed out, which is a key criteria because sometimes there's disputes in the costs, and you want to make sure those are all resolved. Back when the Salinas Road interchange was done on Highway 1, we had a state bond and the costs went up and TAMC had to pay the extra the percentage of the extra cost. And we didn't know that until about 2 years after the project was built. So we had to really come up with quite a bit of money unexpectedly. So once that happens, Imgen Road, 156 Castro Boulevard, surf projects. So that's 2 to 3 years. All those projects are going to be starting construction between now and 2024, hopefully for the surf project. So it's a few years out, but once those are clearly being completed, we'll know what capacity we have to add a project for example.
No, and I'm not suggesting, I just want to know to think about it. Well, I need to wait till they're done and then the board says it's completed and all the bills are paid. That's all I'm trying to.
Yeah, but there also could be a situation if revenue goes up even more than we expected, and we feel comfortable recommending that it's time to discuss a new project that we'll bring to the board. But I wouldn't really expect that until we complete some of these projects.
And I want to follow up with what you're saying, Eden. So next year, when you bring this back with the new adjustments, that will be approval for the board. Like you're going to present that to us and we'll say that sounds good and vote for it, or if we have any questions or will it be automatic like you were thinking? Like we said.
I believe it would be automatic since the policy has been already approved to back its information.
An information item wouldn't allow us to make any adjustments or there would be no vote, correct?
That's correct.
No, that makes sense.
You agree with that?
Yeah, no, yeah, makes sense.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, go for it, and then I'll come to you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
So is the inflation adjustment in the policy?
It is.
Okay, so we're not technically not changing any policy item.
That's correct.
It's all, okay, thank you. And in the slide earlier, where you had marked 44 million, can you just explain that 44 million, how that number came to be? Pie chart.
Maria, can you help me go back?
Oh, you know what? I don't.
So the 44 million is from the Measure X portion of the leverage. So there's 120 million of grant funds, 44 million of Measure X, and then about 70 million of formula and developer fees. So the Measure X portion, there is about 19 million of Measure X that's going towards the Imgen Parkway project.
Pie chart.
Yeah, I was trying to relate that to the fact that every year we're getting 38 million contracts. Why isn't this 38 million? Why is it 40?
This is what we have been able to use to bring in other grant funds. So this isn't just the total revenues that we have. This is what we've used to secure other monies for projects.
Like our leverage.
Correct.
That's a good point. Yes, I get the two big pieces. The small piece where it says 44.734. Shouldn't that be equal to the annual Measure X that we're receiving?
We still have some money that's in the regional bank, essentially.
Also, it's still
we've only each project has a certain dollar amount that's allocated to it. So this is indicating the Measure X that we've used to get other grants. It's not indicative of all the Measure X funds that we have currently.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So I'm gonna go to Supervisor Church and then Supervisor Alejo online.
Could you go back to the first slide, please? Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised TAMC didn't draw in inflation when we're putting this together. I mean, to assume we're gonna be at $20 million, you know, is really, this chart looks great, like, wow, we got tons of money, but it's not realistic. And I think to get a better perspective of where we're at altogether is we need to really have a line here which takes into account since the formation of this agency with annual inflation. I mean, just to kind of see where that 20 million really should be at on here, because we're looking at dollars from years ago and just projecting it on. So,
we're not like 18 million ahead as we've all been discussing. This is just, it would give us a snapshot that's a lot more accurate of if we do have excess funds, if we're really picking up ahead of inflation. And I think that would be a good thing to include in as a piece of information as well.
That's a good point. So show us the baseline with the adjustments.
Correct, I could apply the same inflation adjustment that we're using to the 21.
Supervisor Alejo? Or Linda?
My turn. Yeah, go ahead. Hi. Hello, council member Christina Medina Dirksen from Marina here, noting that I am present. That was going to be my question about the inflation. If we have some triggers in place to really bring it into the actual dollars. The other question I had was the first comment, I'm sorry if it was Mayor Oglesby, about projects on the list. I do appreciate that Marina has been at the forefront at some of these big dollar ticket items. I have over $50 million in infrastructure needs in my city. And as a main thoroughfare and a lot of development happening in my city, this Imjin Parkway and others, most recently, some other funding that came to my city, we are extremely, extremely appreciative. We want to be supportive of other projects that have similar traffic impacts throughout the county. So I do appreciate the comment that perhaps we should have some waiting in the wings projects. My city went through a prioritization with 87 priorities that we whittled down to 12, including some transportation needs, infrastructure needs. So perhaps I don't know where it starts with the priority listing and whether there's a process. I've been on the board since 2020. Prior to I think Measure X came down that I was in the middle of the project's vetting. So I just want to be supportive of all of my colleagues here and their needs, and appreciate that there is this pot of money that only goes so far with inflation. So those are my comments, and mostly comments, and thank you for this informative presentation. I will bring it back to my board.
Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, just if you do move ahead with a inflation indicator, make certain that we look at construction costs and not typical CPI. You know, we're not buying eggs and milk with this money, it's construction, and you'll find that inflation index is much higher than what we think of as CPI.
And that's what was used.
Oh, it's you already baked in here?
Yes.
I'm sorry, some of the discussion confused me on that. Sorry.
With the table that shows the index increases to the regional project list, that does reflect the construction index.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Can you just remind me, does Measure X have a sunset date?
It's a 30-year.
It is 30 years, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We go to the public real quick. Is there any member of the public who speak on this item? Again, I'll ask, is there any member of the public who like to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board. I do have a question. So right now, excess dollars are being put into a fund that's earning some type of interest rate, ones that are not allocated towards projects. All right. The list of projects under Measure X, when that went to the voters, those are absolutely needed to be completed first, correct? Because that is what they voted on. All right. If we get to the point, we're getting close to closing out, let's say construction's done and before closeout could take 1 or 2 years. Would that be the time frame where this board would start having a discussion on adding additional projects or modifying existing projects with additional components or new technologies? Or would you wait till the absolute closeout of the first one or second one?
Well, I think there are a few things that could happen. One of the existing projects could have something that we want to modify, like add feature, or cost goes up significantly, and the board might want to decide to put more Measure X towards it. That's included in the measure as options. And also, we're going to be kicking off the next update to the regional transportation plan, which is the 20-year plan. And over the next year or so, we're gonna be looking at the list of projects that go into that plan, including all of the projects the jurisdictions want to include, the regional projects. So that is a good basis maybe to evaluate potential future Measure X projects. And you don't have to make the decision then, but certainly any project that would be added to this list should be on the updated regional transportation plan list. So it's kind of a compatible.
And I just want to check with all the board members that sound like a reasonable path to move forward on. Yeah, when you see the dollars, it's like, oh God, we could do so much, right? But
No, not really, Chair. I mean, I think we all understand that's not a lot of money. But through the chair, it just, you guys just brought to us where we're not adding in the construction inflation cost, whatever property costs, right? So I get it, it makes sense. And hopefully we have more than, at the end of 30 years, hopefully we have more than $600 million coming in. And I definitely can wait to the proper time. I was just asking when it was, because it sounded like you said 2 or 3 years from now. It didn't line up, because I think the construction of these things takes more than 2 or 3 years. So how long do we wait? When do we gear up? And then I think you said the list for the cities comes from that regional list anyway.
I think that's a good place to start.
And also, if you could do the baseline with the inflation adjustment, then send it out to the board, so we don't have to wait until like the next meeting or two, just to have that information in front of us, that'd be great. This is just a received, so we'll deem it received. We'll now move on to receive reports from our transportation providers. We'll start with Caltrans. Brandy?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, directors. Brandy Ryder here with Caltrans. I just have a couple of really brief announcements. The first announcement, and really we want to thank the city of Salinas for hosting the most recent ribbon cutting event for our Clean California Murals project. The event was a celebration of the beautiful artwork and a celebration of the community of Salinas. As a little bit of background, Caltrans, the city of Salinas, and the Arts Council for Monterey County finalized the murals project that featured bright, life-size murals, drought-resistant landscaping, and improved lighting at East Market Street, Alisal Street, and Sanborn Road along US 101 in Salinas. The project was $1.9 million, was made possible through the Clean California Initiative, a historic $1.2 billion multi-year cleanup effort by Caltrans to remove trash, create thousands of jobs, reclaim, transform, and beautify public spaces. I think that the community at large was really pleased with the murals, and we just really want to thank the city of Salinas for their partnership. The other item I'd like to bring up is just Caltrans through its stormwater campaign. Let's change this to that, is partnering with the Coastal Commission for the second year to advocate for cleaner coastlines and pollutant-free water during September's Coastal Cleanup Month. There have been numerous cleanup activities that have taken place statewide, and the goal of preserving the natural splendor of California's coastline. So that's been ongoing throughout the month of September. And we're really just trying to encourage, beyond encouraging just trash collection, the stormwater campaign encourages preventative actions by individuals to stop pollutants at the source. So those are my announcements for this week, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for Caltrans.
Thank you, Brandy, and we really appreciate Caltrans District 5, all the work they do for our area. Any questions or comments? Yes, Andrew?
Hi, Brandy. Andrew Sandoval from the city of Salinas. I want to thank you for that historic investment in art in our community. It was a great collaboration with multiple agencies. It was nice to see our fire department there and just everybody really excited about art in Salinas. So thank you for starting the momentum, and Salinas has made a historic investment as well in its art. I think this last budget cycle, we approved 200,000. So we're just excited with the momentum, and thank you to Caltrans for partnering on that.
Yeah, all right, let's move on to Monterey Peninsula Airport. From there. Not seeing anyone. We'll move on to Monterey Salinas Transit. Carl.
Thank you, Chair. 50 years ago yesterday, the first Monterey Peninsula Transit bus rolled into service. 6 buses at that time. that serve the cities of Monterey, Seaside, Pacific, Grove, and Carmel by the Sea. And local legend has it that the four of the very well-worn buses that were inherited from the defunct private operator broke down that day. 50 years later, that first year, there was a 500,000 passengers. We've carried as many as 5 million annual passengers in a single year, and we've carried over 178 million passengers since that time. And so we're just thanking, we've been, the past month, had a number of activities where we've been thanking MST employees, customers, past, present, as we look towards the future. So, and as we look towards the future, October 30th, we'll be having a ribbon cutting, 2 ribbon cuttings, one in the city of Salinas and one at the Gilroy Transit Center, celebrating the reestablishment of transit service from Monterey County into Santa Clara County. So you should all be getting invites to that event as well. With that just concludes my presentation. More to come next month.
Thank you, Carl. And MST has just been on the national stage, really has represented Monterey County very, very well. They are a leader in this industry as far as I'm concerned. And I do sit on that board, but I have been to many conferences and everyone knows Carl and everyone knows the work MST is doing. We have something special here. So thank you, Carl. Any questions or comments from the board members? Thank you. We'll now move on to Monterey Bay Air Resource District. I don't believe we have anyone there. Oh, no, no. All right, so item 6, reports on any meetings attended by board members at Transportation Agency expense. I do not believe there was anyone. Executive Director's Report, 7.
All right, thank you. I'd like to start by introducing Ariadne Sembrano. Could you please stand up and say hello? This is our newest staff planner. Just joined us this last month. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, my name is Ariadne Sembrano. I'm originally born from Monterey, California, but I live in Marina. I'm a recent graduate from the University of San Diego. As well as my master's. So it's been really wonderful to return back home and do so it's been great seeing some.
All right, thank you. Next, on October 23rd from 11 to 1, there will be a press event with Assembly Member Addis, Senator Laird, to celebrate the $1 million allocation that we received to develop projects along the Highway 1 Elkhorn Slough for sea level rise resiliency. There will be a save the date sent out for it, but just wanted to mention it right now. We'll have a press event in Moss Landing and then go over to the Elkhorn Slough Reserves Visitor Center and walk out to the train tracks and see how those are impacted by sea level rise. We mentioned earlier the Imgen Parkway project and the final agreements and conservation easements that we're holding up a little bit should be done in October. So it's anticipated construction will start in November. Happy to announce that TAMC received 2 Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants, $665,000 for North Monterey County Safe Routes to School plan. So we'll be able to continue our Safe Routes to School work, covering North Monterey County schools. And then $378,000 for a Monterey County Regional Transportation Vulnerability Assessment. And this is part of quite a bit of climate resiliency work that's being done by TAMC and AMBAG also received a grant. So there's gonna be a lot of coordination and work in this area for the next few years. Then I also wanted just to mention that my annual review and council's annual review, the comments and surveys are due this Friday. So please turn them in if you haven't read. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I do. I just Wanted to, excuse me, mention that, as you probably know, there was a traffic accident over by Toro School in Toro Park this past week where 2 children were injured in a car accident. And it sounds as if both the driver and the walkers were somewhat at fault. Everybody's okay, which is great. But I was just wondering if anyone has been back in touch with TAMC to talk about the safe routes to school for that particular school or district.
I talked to Randy Ishii briefly about that, and also the chief of the North County Fire District. And we haven't talked to anyone from the school district. Ariana and I have talked briefly about what we could do. We've covered most of the schools in Monterey County, but there's still quite a few in primarily unincorporated areas that haven't been covered in our Safe Routes to School work so far.
D5.
And so while all of the city of Monterey has been done, the rest of District 5 is kind of out there. So we've talked a little bit about what we could do for individual schools and reaching out to them. We are going to reach out and let them know that we're going to have an upcoming training for crossing guards. And that was something that I noticed that was mentioned as a potential sort of way to work on the issue that's there at that specific school. But we're going to be talking more internally with staff about all the other schools in the county that aren't covered by the grants that we've received.
Great, good. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Andrew?
Could you share that information about the training for crossing guards when that becomes available?
Sure.
Yeah, me too. I guess all of us, but that's a good point.
It could be Celebrity Crossing Guard Day.
This could be bigger than we expected, so thank you.
All right, any members of the public have any questions on executive director's report? Can I ask any members of the public have any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none. Now move on to announcements from board members. I do want to reiterate the evaluations are due on the 30th. I have only received one. In addition to mine, I have 2 out of this whole board. I'm hoping that they'll be soon. Otherwise, the report is going to be super simple to write. But I know we've all been busy, but this is one of our important duties. Make sure we keep everyone, all the staff on their toes. Given that, adjourn this meeting at 9:52 a.m. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Yeah.
Did you?